If you thought Farfetch'd would be useless in GSC NU, then you thought wrong. Very wrong, in fact. Farfetch'd shares a lot of similarities with Ledyon. On their own, they are bad Pokemon. Their stats are mediocre, and their move pool is shallow. Farfetch'd is certainly more valuable than Ledyon, since it can actually pose an offensive threat thanks to Sword Stance and its normal stab, but it will still be bad. It might end up in PU though, unlike Ledyon, who would certainly be in ZU. We don't have to think about this, however, because Farfetch'd and Ledyon's viability is saved by one move: Baton Pass. It is a well-known fact that Baton Pass is an incredibly overpowered move, since it has been banned in almost half of the generations. Baton Pass passes stat boosting moves like Sword Stance, Agility, and Growth from one Pokemon to another, which can be very game breaking. Farfetch'd is one of the few Pokemon in GSC NU to learn Baton Pass, and it is arguably the best user of the move around. Farfetch'd can end games incredibly fast. If Sword Stance or Agility can be passed to certain physical attackers, then the game can end right there. It is the only Baton Pass user who can fit onto teams that aren't exclusively Agility Pass, because of how dangerous Sword Stance Pass is in general. Unlike Ledyon, who focuses on setting up the ideal scenario for its Agility recipient, Farfetch'd is focused on immediately setting up the sweep of Sword Stance. Farfetch'd can also sweep late game itself with Return, thanks to Agility and Sword Stance. Return also means that Farfetch'd can do huge damage to Haze users as they haze Farfetch'd boosts, which is a huge advantage over Ledyon. While Farfetch'd's defense stats are mediocre, it does have an immunity to Ground at the very least. Farfetch'd greatly appreciates screen support, which Pokemon like Dragonair and Voltorb can provide for it. Farfetch'd does avoid being 2-KO'd by some common Pokemon as well, like Xatu. Explosion Pokemon are also good at supporting Farfetch'd, because after KOing an opposing Pokemon with Explosion, you can send Farfetch'd in freely on the double down. Farfetch'd is one of the worst Pokemon to give free turns to, due to how game-ending Sword Stance and Agility Pass can be. If Farfetch'd has a free pass to set up, you will very much regret giving it those free turns. The two scariest recipients of Sword Stance and Agility are Cubone and Sattler, but other physical attackers also suffice. With Thick Club, Cubone is an incredibly powerful physical attacker, but it is held back by its defenses and its speed. When past Agility though, Cubone outspeeds everything bar Dugtrio, and it OHKOs most of the tier at +2 attack. If Cubone is past an Agility and it manages to set up Sword Stance, then the game is likely over. Almost nothing can take a hit from a boosted Cubone, and it outspeeds everything that isn't named Dugtrio. Dugtrio doesn't even threaten Cubone particularly bad. Farfetch'd can pass Sword Stance to Cubone as well, which can save Cubone a setup turn and its HP. Sattler is almost unstoppable when past Sword Stance, and if you pass Agility and Sword Stance to it at the same time, then good luck handling it. Sattler is a natural fit on Agility Pass teams due to its supporting move pool. Belly Drum users, such as Lickitung and Poliwhirl, are similarly dangerous Agility recipients. Sword Stance can also be passed to strong and fast physical attackers, like Dugtrio and Fearow, who then outspeed and wallop the entire metagame. As mentioned earlier, Farfetch'd can pose an offensive threat itself. Despite Farfetch'd's meager attack stat, normal stab is potent in GSC NU due to a scarcity of rock and steel types, and Farfetch'd learns Sword Stance. Little can stand up to Farfetch'd if it manages to set up Sword Stance and Agility, and it can always just pass these boosts to other Pokemon whenever it feels like it. If you use Magnemite to check Farfetch'd, then it can easily pass the Cubone, and the game is over. Farfetch'd can also threaten Haze and Roar users with boosted Return, whereas other Baton Pass users would just have to accept it. Unlike Ledyon and Ariados, who exclusively fit onto Agility Pass teams, you can use Farfetch'd in offensive teams that stack strong physical attackers. Farfetch'd is very good at punishing rest from Pokemon like Ninetales and Azumarill, and the support it provides can be game-ending. Farfetch'd isn't amazing, but it has a dangerous niche in the metagame. Similarly to Ledyon, Farfetch'd wasn't used much in the Mr. Mime metagame due to how little of the metagame was explored. Agility pass strategies were likely decent, but nobody was trying them out. Agility pass strategies are generally risky because with the wrong matchup or a small bit of hacks, you can lose the game. These types of teams are often poor defensively, which is undesirable in a fast-paced tour like GSC NU. When the Raichu metagames happened, agility pass teams were again at the back of people's minds. While this was the slowest paced era of GSC NU, agility pass teams still had numerous defensive issues and were inconsistent, most notably against Raichu. It was difficult to justify most playstyles in this metagame due to the sheer dominance of Raichu stall teams. When Raichu, Poliwrath, and Golduck were banned in late 2019, Farfetch'd still languished in obscurity for months, until it was discovered in August 2020. This is the period when numerous staples of the current metagame began to rear their head, and Farfetch'd was one such example. Alongside its trusty partner Legion, people realised that oh shit, Cubone kinda destroys everything if it gets an agility. Farfetch'd emerged as one of the tier's most dangerous support Pokemon, but it never became a top tier threat due to its issues and its inconsistency. Farfetch'd has poor bulk and it is weak to common attacking types like Ice and Electric. It is also vulnerable to Explosion, Rock types, and Magnemite. Agility pass strategies are generally risky because they can flop very easily.